Bonjour everyone, and welcome back to the Waves of Your Soul. I am your humble French tarot reader Marine, and today I thought we could chat about my recent favorites, tarot decks, oracle decks, and books. I've not done a recent favorites video in about, I think, 4 or 5 months. It's been a really long time, and because I've got a little bit of spoons today, I thought it could be fun to discuss with you recent favorites for books and for tarot and oracle decks. We're gonna start with books, and we'll move on to cards. So as per usual, there's gonna be timestamps in the description box so you can navigate between those. I will make sure to leave all the names of the books I'm mentioning and all the names of the decks I'm mentioning as well. It's gonna be plenty to get into for my fellow book lovers and deck goblins. Down there is also where you'll find the link to my second channel, the Waves of Your Soul readings. That's where I post pick a pile reading, monthly guidance, where I read the cards for you guys. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I invite you to go over there and check it out. Maybe subscribe, that would make me super happy. And I think that's it for the intro. Long overdue current favorites video, so let's get into it as we have a lot to discuss. Let's do this. So let's get into it. Recent monthly favorites. I think in terms of life joy, the biggest, most obvious life joy has been new addition into the family, my little rescue dog P2. He has been with us for 3 months, almost 3 months now, and we have rescued him. Originally he was supposed to be a foster fail. I fell in love with him. He wasn't meant to stay with us for life, but I just could not let him go after just falling in love with him. He was found in the streets, beaten, starved, in a really bad shape. I think, had a really bad experience with humans, so I just fell in love with his little face, and we've been slowly teaching him how to trust. Now he's turning to be a very cheeky little devil. He's getting the zoomies now. He's letting me pet him when he's in discussion now, whereas before I couldn't approach him. There's still definitely some trauma and fear there. Obviously, he's gone through a lot of horrible things, so it's gonna take a lot of patience, a lot of care, but he's adorable. He's very fluffy and cute, and he is getting along really good with my other 2 doggos. So that's definitely been the life joy, this new addition to my little family, furry family. And yeah, P2 is adorable, so I'll make sure to leave some images here. My little foster fail, which actually is a life success in my opinion. I'm feeling very blessed to have him in my life. In other news, I have been starting up a new hydrotherapy program, as I've really been struggling with chronic health and chronic illness this year, so I'm hoping that this is gonna be helpful for me to regain some strength, regain some mobility in a really rough year for me health-wise in terms of chronic illness and chronic pain. So I know I've not been as present as possible, but I am hoping the new hydrotherapy program will allow me to have more spoons to show up for you guys. I mean, I was excited to be able to film for you today. We're doing it. Slow and steady. I'm used to doing things with small steps here. I am used to navigating the waters of chronic pain and chronic illness. Although this year was particularly difficult, I've taken a few steps backwards, so I'm trying to get back into a little bit more mobility and independence. Before I get into books and cards, which is the biggest category I have, I wanted to quickly talk about shows, because I haven't really been watching many things. The one thing I've been watching has been the new season of Critical Role, which is DM'd by Brennan E. Mulligan, who is my favorite DM. I love Dimension 20. This is where I discovered Dungeons and Dragons, and watching actors play Dungeons and Dragons. He's originally the dungeon master over there, and I fell in love with his style, and so now he's taking over on Critical Role, but with still the same actors, a bunch of new actors, and I'm having the best time watching the new season. So if you guys have never watched any kind of Dungeons and Dragons play or anything like that, you can go on Critical Role's YouTube channel. Season 4 or campaign 4 is a whole new world, whole new characters, so you don't need to know anything. You can start from there. All the episodes are free on YouTube. I think we're like 5 episodes in, and it is honestly probably some of the best media I've ever watched. If you like fantasy books, if you like Game of Thrones, the political intrigue of it, if you love to listen to books on Audible and things like that, I really don't see how you could not enjoy watching people play D&D, specifically professional actors such as these. They create rich characters, the stories are so fascinating, and it's all improv. Like, you would think it's scripted, it's that good, but it's all improv. It's incredible. And I really do believe, that might be a controversial opinion, that watching people improv, in this case playing D&D and telling stories, make us better tarot readers, because it teaches us to connect the dots, it teaches us to tell stories, it teaches us to just, yeah, look at things in a different way. I really couldn't choose a favorite character, but let me know, you guys, if you've been watching it, who are your faves, and just so happy that we get to tune in every week. Let's talk about books, because you guys, I have been reading a lot. I've been, I think I'm on book like 130 at the moment of me filming out of the whole year. Before you ask me how I can read so much, I haven't had a life this year. I've had zero social life. I've been bedbound a lot. I've spent time in hospitals, medical places where I didn't have anything else but to read. I've been bedbound so much. So that's why. How can I read so much? Just don't have any life. And that's where you can get through so many books. I will not tell you about the over 100 books I've been reading, because that would be crazy. But I thought what I would be doing is giving you the best of the best. The books I've rated 4.5 or 5 stars, although I don't have Goodreads, but you know, in my own personal rating, the books that really stood out for me. And I've read a lot of genre, so I'll put little categories so you guys can move around. I have horror, dystopian, I have literary fiction, I have fantasy, of course, which is my go-to. Of course, this is going to be spoiler free, so I am giving you what's on the back of the book, maybe the first couple of pages of the books, and of course my thoughts, but it's all spoiler free, so you guys can go and enjoy the stories yourself. And I'm only giving you the best of the best, so hope that maybe you'll find something you guys would like to read as well. If you see me looking down, it's because I have my phone with my notes on it. As like I said, there's a lot of books to get through. Let's start with horror. I have discovered that I like to read horror for someone who's a scaredy cat and hates horror movies. Horror books are actually something I've really enjoyed this year. Who knew? I have two recommendations for those of you who, like me, potentially are scaredy cats. I don't think those are too scary. There's definitely a little bit of body horror. There's a couple of things that are uncomfortable, but it's nothing that you know, relates to like serial killers or anything jumping out on you or anything like that. So the first one I really absolutely adored is called Between Two Fires. A lot of those I read on my tablet, or I read from the library. So I will make sure to leave images here, because I don't have a lot of physical copies actually of most of the books I read. I'm tackling my physical TBRs toward the end of the year. When I was bedbound, it was mostly on my tablet or a lot of library books. So anyway, it takes place in medieval France, where there's some kind of plague raging through the land that turns people into zombies. And we follow Thomas, who is a fallen knight who now has turned to thieving. He's kind of turned away from his honor and duty bound life, and he's had to find other ways to survive, and he encounters a young girl who seems to have interesting powers. They end up having to cross France, accompanied by a priest. So it's a young girl, a fallen knight, and a priest. Sounds like a bad joke, right? Whilst there's horror elements, as there's monsters and zombies, and there's almost this like very heavy themes of good versus evil, it's also a really beautiful story of hope, of redemption. The relationship between the knight and the young girl is really beautiful, well thought out. The story is poignant, and it's just really wonderful. I think this one you are invited to get into, not knowing too much, if you like the idea of like a medieval horror story, but with a lot of heart, beautiful themes of found family, and also an interesting critique of the subversive side of religion and faith. This is a really interesting book. I highly recommend it. The second horror book I highly recommend, it's a story I think I will continue to think about for a really long time. It's called Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Andrews. It's a YA story with queer representation, and it tells a story of two young boys, two friends who are in this boarding school. One of them is obsessed with writing stories, specifically dark fairy tales, and the other one is obsessed with drawing, specifically monsters. And so they have this really beautiful friendship, until one day the monsters that one of the boys likes to draw start to come alive. The prose is luscious in this one. I wanted to highlight every single word and sentence. It was beautiful writing. It's a haunting story. There's beautiful queer representation, moody kind of dark vibe of these monsters in the forest. It really touches your heart. You feel the vines almost creeping alongside your spine when the boys are trying to find the monsters. It's just a really beautiful story, again, about friendship, about love. I finished this book and I found myself staring at the ceiling, just not knowing what to do with my life anymore. It was that good. There's also a really great representation of asexuality in this one, which I thought was really great. That's not something we see a lot of in books. Overall, beautiful writing, beautiful story. If you want something a little bit dark and gritty, but will really leave an imprint on your heart, I highly recommend Don't Let the Forest In. Honestly, one of the best books I've read. Moving on to another category, I want to talk about fiction, literary fiction. I have two big mention for literary fiction, two books that really for me were 5-star. Again, some of the best books I've read this year. The first one is a long time coming. I think a lot of you will probably know this one. It is Where the Crawdad Sings by Delilah Owens. I'm pretty sure this was turned into a movie. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I've heard great things about the movie as well. So if you guys prefer to watch movies, that might be a good way also to consume that story. But this was a beautiful, again, another one with a beautiful prose and specifically a beautiful description of nature. It follows the story of a young girl who is living in the North Carolina marshes, and so we follow her life as a little girl. Her mother leaves her father and her siblings behind, and eventually she kind of has to learn how to fend for herself, this little girl, from a very young age. But she is almost like a wild soul because she is constantly spending time in the marshes with nature. The birds are her best friends, and so she's really set away from life and from specifically society and other human beings. She turns into a little bit of a wild soul, and we follow her from a young girl to adulthood. Parallel to that, parallel to this coming of age story, which is really beautiful because there's explanations of all the gorgeous nature and animals that are part of these like ecosystem of the marshes. Parallel to that, there's a murder mystery as we are following cops, a couple of cops who are trying to elucidate the murder of one of the men who lives in the village next to where these girls live. So we have two timelines, the coming of age story of the little girl, how she grows up, and parallel to that a murder mystery kind of evolving of trying to find out who killed this other person. One of the most beautiful books I've read. The description of nature, the story of this young girl who has to fend for herself, who ends up really being cast away from society, but who finds joy and comfort through the birds, through the ocean, through her animal companions. I loved it so much. Really beautiful story. Cannot recommend enough. If you guys have read or watched the movie, let me know. We can talk about it in the comments. And the other literary fiction that I gave 5 stars that I will carry with me for a really long time, one of the best books I read this year, has to go to As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow by Zulfa Katu. This is a YA story and it's a war story, but it's also probably one of the most beautiful love stories I've read ever. It is a book that will stay with me for a very long time. We are following the story of, again, a young girl, this time who lives in Syria at the time of the revolution. She is training to be a nurse in this country that's facing war and that's facing a lot of violence, and so she's trying to survive, and she's trying to also find ways to help her sister-in-law survive, as she is the only family that's left. All of her other families have been killed in this war, in this civil war, and so we follow the story of this young girl, this young nurse, who is just so strong and so brave, and obviously she meets someone special, and there's this beautiful love story there that is just so real, right? How can you find love in a place that is full of despair and hopelessness and violence? It is a story that will stay with you for a really long time. I absolutely adored it. I cried, probably one of the books that made me cry the most this year, so if you like a good cry, I highly recommend. Another one I believe that has been made into a movie. I haven't watched the movie, I probably will at some point. Let me know if you guys have watched it, if you have read the book, we can discuss. It's considered YA, but honestly I really don't think it reads as YA. I think everyone should read this, adults specifically. It's so important, especially with everything going on in the world. For sci-fi, I have one mention of a book I loved, and actually it's part of the Goodreads shortlist for sci-fi. I mean, it's part of the books that you can vote for sci-fi for 2025. It's called Of Monsters and Mainframe by Barbara Truelove. It is a quirky, strange, monster mash queer story in space. And if that sounds fun, let me confirm, it is so much fun. We are following this spaceship who has two AI. One of the main AI is one of the main POV. It's the AI of the ship, one who controls the ship, who's like trying to bring people in the distant future from Earth to a colony in space. Another main POV is the medical AI on the ship, who this time is a little bit different, as this one is a lot more social. It's used to communicating with people on the ship, so it has a little bit more of a sociable kind of conscience, if I can say that about AI, compared to the AI of the main AI of the ship, who's a lot more, you know, structured and all about getting from point A to point B. We follow this spaceship with its medical AI, and as soon as the book starts, we are following them on this specific trip that they're taking. They're taking humans from Earth to another planet, except during this trip, all of their human passengers end up being killed by a monster. So these AIs are trying to find out what happened. We've got monsters, we've got queer representation in this one. It's a bunch of really fun characters. The AI's POVs are hilarious, but also really interesting. I loved it. If you want a good time, something set up, if you like the idea of like monster mash in space, honestly, go for it. It's a really good time. I really enjoyed my time with this one. Let's move on to dystopian. I love to read dystopian stories, post-apocalyptic stories. There's something, or like alternate universe. I love those kind of stories. And I have two great mentions, two books I absolutely adored reading in recent months. The first one was so great, I actually got my mom to read it as soon as I was finished with it. And it's A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World. It follows the story of young Grace, our main character, who is living on this little island off the coast of England in this like post-apocalyptic future. We don't really know what happened, but we just know that humans are pretty much extinct. There's really not that many people left. Some kind of catastrophe happened, and so Grace lives with his family and his dogs on this little island until one day someone comes to the island and steals one of his dogs. And Grace loves his dogs. He loves them so much. They're part of his family. So he decides to go after this thief and to try and find his dog again, to try and get his dog back. So he's gonna cross this like apocalypse-ridden England, and we're gonna follow this young teenager who is brave, who is kind, and who is trying to do everything to get his dog back. And honestly, this story was amazing. I told you, I loved it so much. As soon as I finished it, I got my mom to read it. She loved it as well, and she doesn't even read dystopian normally, but I just knew this is not just a story about post-apocalyptic things. It's actually a story about love, specifically the love you have for your pets. It's a story about what you're willing to do for the people or the beings that you love, and it's a story about hope in a world that is full of despair. Again, just a really, really beautiful story. For a dystopian, I think I would call this a hopeful dystopian, right? Some of the dystopian stories I've read are really dark and kind of sad and full of despair. This one is very hopeful and bright. And the other dystopian story I want to shout out that I loved so much is The Gracier, which I actually have here. I have the French version. In French, it's called Année de Grâce. So this is by Kim Liggett. In this world, young girls at the age of 16 are sent away to this island as they need to expel their dirty magic that people think makes them dangerous. And so right. So, as you can tell, there's going to be big themes of feminism and patriarchy and all of that. And of course, we follow the story of a young girl, our main character, who happens to go on her Gracier. And we find out what happens on this island where girls are sent away for 1 year as they are considered dangerous. They have to expel their magic before they are let back in society. A powerful feminist dystopia that will look at themes of oppression, patriarchy, all of that. The Gracier. it's a must read. I have a lot of fantasy to talk about, as this is my main kind of subject. The first one being completed trilogies that I've read or completed series. One of the series I've read that I absolutely loved has been The Life Ship Traders by Robin Hobb. Robin Hobb is one of the queens of fantasy. She was one of the first women to write fantasy, and if you've never read her and you love fantasy stories that are specifically dedicated to character development, you will absolutely love Robin Hobb stories. They're usually slower in pace. It's not a lot of action, but it's really more about the characters and their stories and their emotional turmoil, because she loves to put them through the ringer, her characters. And that is the case in the Life Ship trilogy. So it's a pirate story, I would say, which also I love. Set in her usual world, humans have managed to build ships with sentience. So those ships are able to have a voice, they're able to navigate themselves, and we follow the Vesti family, who is one of the oldest family from the city. They are trying to awake their family ships, their life ship, and so we follow the story of like this specific family with different characters, different family members. I don't want to say too much. I think this one, it's best if you do your own research, but if I have any fellow Robin Hobb lovers here, let me know in the comments, we can talk about it. I adored this trilogy. Every single book hit. I really enjoyed it. Did I prefer it from Fitz and the Fool? No, I still prefer her other kind of trilogies, but it was still a fantastic read. So let me know if you guys are reading Robin Hobb, if you like The Life Ship Traders. Let's talk in the comments. And another series I absolutely devoured, you guys. I read these in such a short time, and they're chunky books. No, Raya Revelations. They are by M.J. Sullivan, and he's quickly becoming one of my favorite fantasy authors. I've discovered him this year. He's written a ton of books, and I want to read them all. First one you are invited to read are these ones, the ones I've read, which are the Raya, so hard to say with my French accent, Raya Revelations. Classic fantasy, but written in such a way that you just feel at home and comfortable, and it's really like you feel like you're in good hands, right? If you like The Lord of the Rings, if you like kind of classical fantasy stories that are about mages and adventurers and thieves and all of that, then you will love these books. Is it the most unique fantasy books I've ever read? No. The characters are so well fleshed out, the story and the world are so interesting that you just feel like you're in good hands. So in this one you follow a duo of thieves, two best friends, and they are really interesting. One is like the broody thief, and the other one is more like the muscly warrior. We have the sunshine kind of Labrador kind of personality, whereas the other one is very broody and moody. They are being hired to steal a crown jewels, and they end up getting framed for the king's murder. So suddenly they have to be on the run as they are getting accused of something they didn't do. What I love about this author is that he manages to write also female characters who are strong and badass and interesting, as well as he writes his male characters, and I thought that was fantastic, as sometimes female characters written by male authors are not always so fleshed out, I found, in my personal opinion. In this case we have strong, badass, fierce, brave, and emotionally intelligent women that are also part of this world, and I just loved this story so much. I devoured all 3 books. It was really great, and I'm actually going to be reading more from this author as he has written a ton of books. Let me know if there's any other fans of this author out there. I'd love to chat with you guys about that, as I really had a great time. So let me know if you've read any of his books. If you guys like fantasy, I can assure you you'll have a great time. Next category I want to talk about are first books of a series, meaning the first books are out, maybe the second book is coming out this year or early next year, and both of them are amazing debuts in my opinion, and both of them are some of my favorite reads of the year. I really loved both of these books. Have any fantasy lovers out there? If you're gonna only read a couple of books, I think read either of the ones I'm gonna talk about now. The first one is called The Will of the Many by James Islington, and this is a really interesting story as it is fantasy but inspired by the Roman Empire. In this one, will, in the sense of people's life force, can be gathered, can be given away. There's this whole structure of this society where people at the bottom of the pyramid have to give away their will to people who are higher in the hierarchy. The higher you are in the hierarchy of this society, the more powerful you are, as you get the will of or life force of more and more people. So the people at the top have longer lifespan, they have superpowers, super strength kind of vibes, whereas the people at the bottom, the poor people, are not only have to give away their will, but that creates poorer health, shorter lifespan, etc., etc. So it's really interesting, this Roman Empire kind of inspiration, as you see this structure that's really obviously unfair, where, you know, people at the bottom and people at the top of the pyramid. And in this one we follow a young orphan who is forced to choose a new identity, as originally he is the prince of a royal family who has been decimated by the empire. So he is going into hiding, and not only is he forced to ditch away his old identity, he's also forced, through circumstances I won't spoil, to join this elite school who is training the future elite of the society, which represents everything he despises. So this takes place in this kind of like academic setting. There's trials, obviously, as all great school stories, but it's not just about that. It's about truly this Roman Empire and this young man who is trying to survive in a school that represents everything he hates. The magic system is fascinating, the school setting is fascinating, the pace is amazing. I've read other James Islington books. I've tried to read his first trilogy. I read the first two books that are the Lycanus trilogy. I ended up DNFing it through the third book. Too complicated. I couldn't follow through. It was way too complex, in my opinion, and I just didn't care for the characters that much. I think his newer trilogy, this one, The Will of the Many, we have The Strength of the Few, the second book in this trilogy, coming out literally now at the moment of me filming. It needed for the Goodreads for Best Fantasy of the Year. This new trilogy he's reading is excellent, for me, miles above his first one. Super complex and interesting, kind of political intrigues, but still accessible in the sense of the character story and everything. It's really, really, really great. Highly recommend it. And another amazing first book of a series I wanted to mention, as it's one of my favorite books of the year. I have to mention The Raven Scholar by Antonia Hudson, another one that's nominated for Goodreads Best Book of the Year. For me, this one has my vote, as I really, really loved it. This is another one that is set in this kind of like academic setting, except very different from our other book, because in this one, the world and the magic system is really inspired by animals. So each person are related. So the people who have magic have an affinity with different animals. Different animals give you different strengths. So for example, people who have an affinity with the bear are really strong, whereas people who have an affinity with the raven are really smart, right? And so we follow someone who is the Raven Scholar. She is obviously someone who has an affinity with the raven. She is working for the emperor in another very unfair and unjust society, and every 7 years in this world there are trials to decide who is going to be the next emperor. So when we start the book, it's the moment where the trials are supposed to happen to decide who is going to be the next emperor. Except a murder happens, one of the contestants to become emperor is killed, and obviously that sets everything into motion. Our Raven Scholar, our main character, is tasked with trying to find out who murdered was a contestant. There's political intrigue, there's this really interesting kind of animal-based magic system, there's trials. The court intrigue specifically is amazing, and the characters are really cool. And also, for those of you who love tarot like me, there's gonna be, I won't say who obviously, but there's a really interesting archetype being depicted here of the fool, of the jester, which is one of the best, I would say, full description or full archetype I've read in a really long time. There's no mention of tarot, but I saw the fool from tarot in this particular character of the jester, and of, you know, people think they are joking and they're silly, but actually there's a lot more behind that brain. I thought it was fascinating. I love this so much. Really, really great story. I highly recommend it. honestly, one of the best books I've read this year. Finally, the last book I want to mention is a standalone fantasy. So this is one where you don't have to read the whole series. Potentially 6 stars, infinity stars. I'm still thinking about it like weeks after I finished it. I want to gift it to all of my friends. It was that good. We are talking about Blood Over Bright Heaven by M.L. Wong. Wow. If you are looking for a story that will pack a punch in a short amount of pages, in the sense that it's just a standalone, go with this one. It's so good. We follow the story in this one of a young mage, a female mage, who is wanting to become the first female high mage in a world where only men are normally allowed to perform magic that higher up in the society. Lives in this kind of like really developed magically city under a dome. It's this kind of like bubble in this city where magic has allowed people to thrive and to have technology and everything, but the rest of the world is subject to the blight, what is being called the blight, which is some kind of like dark magic which kills people and makes the rest of the world a really horrible place to be. We have 2 points of views in this one. The first one being this female mage who is wanting to do everything she can to become the first female high mage. She is not a necessarily good person, and yet she's extremely smart and ambitious, so fascinating to follow her. At the same time, we follow someone who is coming from these other parts of the world and almost like an immigrant trying to get into this city for a second chance, obviously seeing the other side of that city that is not necessarily all good and not necessarily the best place to live, or at least not when you are an immigrant who's arriving with nothing to your name and who is being forced to work shitty jobs and to live in poverty. So really interesting themes of colonization, feminism, patriarchy, oppression. This will rip at your heartstring. I gasped, I cried. It's a powerful story. It packs a punch in terms of the emotional trauma, in terms of the storyline, in terms of the characters. It's just really powerful themes here of colonization, oppression, patriarchy. The main character, like I said, the main female character, she's not a good person, and yet you still are like wanting her to succeed because she is, you know, faced with this patriarchal society who doesn't believe in her, and yet she is fighting for this world, which you are slowly finding out is not necessarily a just world. Beautiful story. I highly recommend it, you guys. I will think about this story for a really long time. For a standalone fantasy, it's probably one of my best ever that I've ever read. So, The Bright Heaven by M.L. Wong. Amazing. Hey, that's the last book I wanted to talk about for today. I know it's a lot. I told you we had like 5 months of reading to catch up on, and that's not all the books I've read. I really just chose today the best of the best, the ones that I think are truly amazing and that I would recommend. Hopefully out of all of those, you will have found your next read, something that interests you. Let me know in the comments what books you've enjoyed recently. If you have any recommendations, now you know a little bit more my taste. We can chat in the comments. Of course, I love to discuss with you guys. And without further ado, we're going to talk about decks because I have a lot of decks to chat about. So let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about decks, baby. I go to when I've been really flared up, because you're going to see I've used different decks for different things. As per usual, I'm going to tell you which decks I've used for what, why they stood out in my tarot practice. And so the first couple of decks I wanted to chat about were decks that have been my go-to when I've been really flared up, when I've been wanting comfort, specifically having struggles with chronic pain, chronic illness. My go-to have been this combo. Of course, the Gentle Tarot. This is a deck you guys know and love. I have the Linen edition. This is by Mary in the Sky. You guys have seen this deck everywhere. But the Oracle I've been loving to pair it with has been the Whale Can Save Us Oracle. This was a Kickstarter I backed earlier this year. It's, as the name suggests, a deck that is inspired by whales. And this is a fantastic deck specifically for if you're looking to journal, if you want like little prompts for journaling, for creating spreads, for tuning in with your soul, with your inner landscape. It's beautiful. I absolutely adore the whale art style. I mean, I love whales, personally. I love the questions that are at the bottom. There's a guidebook which is great. It's both in English and in Spanish, but I have been also using this one just on its own, reading the question and then creating a spread around it and using the Gentle Tarot as the tarot deck to answer that spread. I've been journaling with this deck, soothing, comforting, healing, and a hug deck. So I really have been enjoying this one for comfort, for moments where I need to check in with my soul, where I need something gentle and kind. The Whale Can Save Us Oracle is beautiful, especially paired with the Gentle Tarot. So these have been my go-to when I've been needing a little bit of a hug from the universe. When it comes to day-to-day readings, I would say, specifically for day-to-day life, for pentacles matters, right? Matters that relate to my daily life. Maybe I have questions about my next doctor appointments. Maybe my friend has questions about her job interview, right? Very day-to-day, normal life stuff. I have been loving using the Peculiar Pathways by Lennox Reese, and in combination, I've been adoring using her oracle deck, which is called Coastal Curiosity, also by Lennox Reese. I think Lennox has a YouTube channel, so I'm sure she shares all her decks on her YouTube channel, so I'll try and remember to include it in the description box. Of course, I'll put all the names of the decks I'm mentioning today in the description box. Here are the backs of the tarot deck. One of my most used deck of the year for sure. This is beautiful. I love the mix between engravings mixed with colorful backgrounds. There's no humans in this one, which makes it a great reader for anything. Specifically for me, it shines in day-to-day readings, like I said, anything related to the Pentacle worlds, but I've also really enjoyed using it for past life readings. I've enjoyed using this for matters that are a little bit more spiritual. I just love the fact that there's no humans in this one. It's only objects, symbols, and animals. It's a really interesting reader, and the guidebook with this one that you can get either printed or on PDF format is amazing. I always love Lennox's guidebooks. She pours a lot of love into them. This one particularly is great because she explains to you why each symbol was chosen, so why the eye and why the moon, and etc, etc. So if you want to bond with the deck and understand every choice that was made, you can read the guidebook. And the oracle deck I've been pairing with it, that it just goes so well because it's by the same creator, so of course it's gonna go well. It's the Coastal Curiosities by Lennox Reese. This is a very popular, I think, oracle deck in the TarotTube community. Both of these decks are indie, I forgot to say, and I got both of these from Salon des Arcanes, so but you can also get them obviously directly from the artist, so whatever works better for you guys. I love Lennox's art style and choices of keywords, and this one is just such a great pairing with the Peculiar Pathways. We have beautiful linen cardstock. The keywords are expensive, again, gorgeous mix of color with black and white engravings, and this one goes with everything. I mean, I've loved pairing it with my Peculiar Pathways tarot, but it goes well with classical decks. It goes well with like RWS decks, like Tarot de Marseille. This is a great deck to pair with any kind of tarot deck. It just goes with everything. If you're looking for a very versatile oracle, this would be one I recommend because the quality of the keywords, the fact that they're quite expensive, and the kind of art style as well, goes with a lot of different styles, so I've been really adoring this one. Another one that comes with a great guidebook, so super happy I got my hands on this one this year, as both of these have been used non-stop. When it comes to reading for others, my go-to deck has been this mass market deck. It's called the Unfolding Past Tarot by Athènes Noctua. This is, who printed this? Oh, it's Hay House. And I got this one, I think it was this year or late last year, I can't remember, you guys. But it used to be indie, it's now mass market. And I love this one to read for others specifically because it is really modern, and so it has diverse people, different kinds of people, different skin colors, ethnicities, body type, ages, all of that stuff. And it feels very accessible. So I've read tarot for people who had their cards read for the first time recently, and they were a little bit apprehensive, as a lot of people are when it's the first time they read they get their cards read, right? And this one wasn't scary to them. It felt very relatable and just so much rooted in day-to-day life that it made the experience really enjoyable for them. Whilst they were originally scared of tarot, they found that this deck was really just relatable and accessible and approachable. Problem, my battery keeps dying, so Mercury retrograde is doing the most. I'm gonna have to try and go a little bit faster, I think, if I want to try and talk about all the decks. So I wanted to shout it out if I have anyone here who wants to read for other people and you're looking for a good deck. This one is mass market. It's easy to find, it's not too expensive. People seem to really like it, even people who are not into tarot. So that one has kind of become a little bit of a workhorse. I never read for myself with it, but I've been really enjoying reading for others. So that's the deck I like to use for other people. When it comes to reading for myself, apart from obviously when I need a little bit of a hug, my go-tos the last couple of months, I have a couple of tarot decks I wanted to shout out. So the first one has been for September. I think I mostly use this one. It's the Whispers of Garden, the longest tarot name ever. Whispers of Stars and Garden Tarot. I backed this one on Kickstarter, but you can still find it on websites like Vermillon Collection and Tevada, I think. This is a gorgeous deck. You could get it in different copies, like blue box, green box, purple box. The main difference is the color of the box and the color of the back. I got the blue version because I like blue, but they're all really beautiful. And I don't think there was any changes in terms of the art style. So for the blue version, of course, the backings are blue, the sides are blue. This is a fully hand-drawn watercolor deck, which is probably one of the most beautiful tarot decks I acquired this year. I think it's absolutely beautiful and I've been using it a lot. Specifically in September, it was my go-to. It's gorgeous. This is another one I would be happy to use for other people. It's whimsical, it has some fantasy elements, but it's also really stunning. The art style is gorgeous. Everything was handmade by the creator. I love the court cards. The color choices are really stunning and I'm just a fan, honestly, of this is another one that I think you can expect to see in my top decks of the year. I adore it. I need to use it for you guys on my second channel, The Waves of Your Soul readings, because it's really beautiful. It's a great reader. This is one I know a lot of people have gotten as well. After I showed it on my channel, I had a ton of comments, so I'm really glad people have been able to get their hands on it, as it's a really special deck. The cardstock is matte, that kind of like rose petal finish, and it's just so beautiful. Honestly, one of the most beautiful deck of the year for me, maybe the most beautiful deck, but definitely not just a pretty face, it also reads like a dream and I adore it. So this is one I can see myself continuing to use for the rest of the year and next year as well, and expect to see it in my top decks of the year because it's really special, I think. Kind of took me by surprise. I remember backing the Kickstarter and realizing the cards were pretty on image, but when the deck actually arrived, it blew me away. It's even more beautiful in person, if I can say that. So love, love, love this one. I forgot the name again. Whispers of Stars and Garden Tarot. The Whisper Tarot. For myself, I call it the Whisper Tarot. We had a couple of extra cards you could swap. I think there's a Devil card you can change. I think there's a Lover's card, so you can kind of make the deck your own, which is always fun. My main deck for October, of course, it was spooky season, so I had to get a spooky deck, but I wasn't in the mood for like dark spooky, so I actually used the Silver Acorn Tarot, which is an indie deck. It's by Stephanie Buchanan, I think. I got this deck end of last year, just after spooky season. So it was truly the first year where I could use it at the time when I wanted to, and boy oh boy, was it a joy. I love this one so much. It's cute, it's a little bit spooky, but it's mostly adorable. And it's an indie deck, and I will say this is not a cheap deck. Probably one of the most expensive decks I've gotten, to be honest. I think I paid like $80 for the deck, and then you have to pay shipping on top. I've used it all months of October. It was like pretty much the only deck I used for myself, so it brought a lot of joy for sure. Here are the backs. They're really cute. The cards are longer than a little bit taller than your typical tarot, and as you're gonna see here, we are in the realm of like skeletons, and we have pumpkins and bats and cats. spookylicious details. It is such a joy, this deck. It's beautiful, it's cute, it has a little bit of a cheeky sense of humor, and I adore it so much. It's been my go-to deck. I've pretty much only used this one, yeah. I think all months of October, that was my main deck for myself. Used it pretty much every day. And for the swords, we have birds. For the pentacles, we have these little like vegetable people. We have pumpkins and radishes and onions, so cute. For the wands, we have cats. Black cats mostly, so it's a joy. I mean, this Hierophant is everything. I love him so much. This is a great deck for every day. It's a great deck for storytelling. It's a great deck for this time of year, but honestly a deck I could see myself using all year long, to be honest. When October ended, I didn't want to stop using this one, and that says a lot, because normally I get bored, honestly, sometimes using the same deck for too long. I need to switch and swap. But this one never got boring to me. It was always fun, it was always a good time, it was always a joy to read. So I really like this. I love this Knight of Wands, it's so cute. And I'm excited to pick it back up. Probably in December I'll use this one again, because I miss it already. After like even just a few weeks not using it, I already miss it. Definitely not the most affordable deck ever, but if you are wanting to treat yourself, it's a beautiful creation. I think this artist just released a Lenormand as well. I don't know if she's working on an oracle, but the Lenormand looks really beautiful in the same kind of spooky, cute world. Gorgeous. A little deck that took me by surprise and that still I cannot put down, especially in the month of November, is the Lighthouse in the Fog Tarot. This is a deck I found on Vermillon Collection, I think. I got the smaller edition because that's the only one I could find at the time, but originally it comes in a large size and a small size. If I could have chosen, I would have definitely gotten the taller version. As you guys might know, I prefer normal size decks or a little bit larger decks. I'm not a huge fan of small decks because I have big hands, big orc hands. So small decks make me feel like I'm using Polly Pocket kind of decks. But that's the only thing I could find, and I wanted to check this deck out, so I went with this version. That being said, the art style is beautiful, and I truly did not expect that when I got the deck. This is one of those that I kind of took a chance on. I saw a couple of images and I was like, yeah, let me give it a chance. And you know what? It's actually so stunning. It's really interesting. We have very different kind of setup. For the majors, we have all of these blue tones with black borders, but all of the minors have white borders. For the wands, we're in these kind of like dark brown tones. The swords are more black and white. The majors are very focused in these kind of underwater themes, but the minors are a little bit more fantasy, and it's really interesting. It's almost like there's varying, that's not English, is it? There's different art style that makes me wonder if there was different artists working on this one, as it could be. I mean, it could be a collaborative deck. I really couldn't find much information about this deck. Some of the art style feels a little bit different from one another, but overall it's really stunning and really quirky and magical. So I have been really enjoying it. It's really a surprise, this one. Probably the most surprising deck I've gotten this year, because it's a little bit strange, not really the most cohesive art style, and yet I love the choices of depiction of the card. I love the kind of interesting choice of art style. I love the water theme for the majors. It feels fantasy. It feels a little bit imaginative and whimsical. Actually, the fact that it's been smaller has been a great deck to take around. Don't see this one very often. It seems to be a little bit underrated. I never see anyone mention it. The Lighthouse in the Fog Tarot is really a hidden gem. The last deck I wanted to mention, and we'll finish here for today as my battery seems to be about to die, is the King's Theatre Tarot. I've shared this in a haul. I got this on Kickstarter, but you can get it on websites now like Vermillon Collection or Tevada, the websites that usually are selling like Asian created decks. First up, the box, absolutely stunning. This has been my go-to when I've been wanting something cute and sweet and whimsical, and that would please my inner child. It is really cool. The art style makes you feel like it's 3D because everything is cut like paper marionettes, almost paper puppet, so it gives that 3D effect, which is why it's called the King's Theatre. It looks like you know, puppet kind of theater. It's set up in this really sweet world. We see this little being, always with their little goose and cat companion. Very sweet, very cute, very kawaii. And I have been adoring this one when I've been in the mood for something adorable. I don't know if I shared the back. Simple, we have green edges, matte edges. I love the black cat and the goose companion. They are adorable. I love this particular card, the Five of Pentacles is cute. One that puts a smile on my face. This has been my good mood deck, I would say, of the recent months. I love the goose particularly. It just makes me smile, so I wanted to shout it out. I've gotten a lot of cute decks this year, and this one has been a favorite of mine recently. It feels very whimsical. There's little beings, and it puts a smile on your face, right? So I really adore it. Another one I don't see anyone talk about, although to be fair, you guys, I am really behind when it comes to checking videos from my fellow tarot tubers. I've been really struggling with health and trying to just put the few contents I've been putting out there, and that's not really left me with a lot of time to watch other people's videos. So maybe this deck is popular. You can let me know in the comments. I will leave you here. Thank you so much for watching if you made it this far. I hope it was interesting to hear me talk about recent favorite books, recent favorite decks. Let me know what have been your recent favorite reads, whether it's cards or pages. Thank you so much for being here. I am sending you so much good vibes. Until next time, keep navigating the waves of your soul. Bye!